this contest set for one fall is for the WWE Championship.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Welcome to Around the Turnbuckle. I'm Big Al. That guy right there is Professor Keith, as always. And joining us tonight, fans, is the principal owner of 3WA here in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, Demetrius Arion. What's up, sir?
How's it going?
We're doing good, sir. We're doing absolutely good. So for those of you who saw last week, we had Dino Sana on, the longtime president and founder of 3WA, and he had some things to say about 3WA in general, but he also had, some things to say about our guests, not exactly about our guests, but about the company as a whole. Mm-hmm. Many of the fans know that the 3WA has now switched hands, and Mr. Arion down there is actually the now owner of 3WA. So he asked
that, I think, right?
So
about a year.
What was that?
Yeah, over a year now, right?
Actually, it's over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
May of 22 is when I actually took full ownership.
So there it is, May of 2022.
I guess I'm thinking of last year. Dino finally announced it publicly to the crowd.
He announced his retirement and whatnot. Yes,
right. Yeah.
So we're going to get into that. Let me get into some questions, not questions, rather some comments here. David's here. He says, it's Sunday night. Time to gather around the turnbuckle for another exciting episode. Tonight is the Greek God Live. Christopher's here. Always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you for joining us. David, thank you. Good evening. I hope Dino calls in. So do we. But I'm sure he won't. But anyway, so.
I hope he does.
After last week's episode, you reached out to me and you wanted this time. So, of course, the time is yours, sir. Yeah. Whatever you want to say, go on and say it.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this stuff, but Hugh's main complaint is that he didn't like the way he was treated or how his exit happened, or that's the gist I got from the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to be the issue.
Well,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I'm going to go into probably start from the end and then we can go backwards.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever makes sense to you.
I'm not here to trash the guy or anything, just like he did to us. I'm just going to put out the facts, let people figure it out. I mean, I got nothing against him. I had a lot of respect for him up until a couple of things he said last week, especially since a lot of it was referring to one of the closest people to me. Since he wanted to leave it nameless, I'm going to leave it nameless. But he knows what I'm talking about. And if I said stuff like that about anyone he's related to like that, he'd be looking for lawyers, guns, and money, so to speak. You know what I mean? So
understood.
I'm going to leave that at that. Like I said, I'm not going to have like a little high school cheerleader fight here. He's a little disgruntled. Maybe, I don't know where it came from, but I'll give you the rundown. As of, April 11th, 13th, whatever, he put those posts up.
Mm-hmm.
Make a long story short, April 11th, we had a benefit show that we did.
Yep.
And it was a pretty strong sponsor who pretty much covered everything. They did the ads. They did the running around. They pretty much, we basically had nothing to do but bring a show there.
Right.
Since Dino has the contacts, I could have done it myself. I have the numbers. He contacted the Warlord and the Barbarian. Kind of, helped out. That way I didn't have to make the calls. But other than that, he really wasn't needed for anything.
Right.
So leading up to the show, he asked me if he was allowed to come. And I said to him, what do you mean you're asking? I mean, of course you can come, you know. Why would you even ask?
Right.
So he came to the show. Everything seemed okay and stuff like that. When it was time to start the show, as always, we asked him if he was coming, if you wanted, the person, the nameless person went to him, you know, we're getting this ready to start. You want to come to the back? He kind of came out with a smart ass remark like, oh, am I allowed? And then didn't show up. So we started the show. The sponsors got in there, did their thing, and you know, the show happened. It turned out to be pretty successful between the donations and everything they have. It's from the entire time I've been with the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance. And from now on, I'm going to keep that part separate from 3WA.
Okay.
Because in a short time, it's going to be one had nothing to do with the other. And I'll explain why. I mean, I'm not pulling this stuff out of the air, you know. But the show was very successful. They raised a really good amount of money for them. And it's probably the most successful show I've been a part of in that respect since I've been part of the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of days later, I mean, he said goodbye, left, whatever. A couple of days later, I see these posts that all of a sudden he's retiring, putting up some big boo-hoo thing about, you know, it's time for him to go, and he's seeing signs and all that stuff. I was thinking, damn, where's that coming from? You know? And so when somebody walks out that sudden, I kind of figure, well, you know, I don't want him being able to run anything. So I took him off as administrator for the page or the workers page, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much it. And then we had the anniversary show coming up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And well, to go back to the beginning a little bit, when I bought the company, and I bought it outright, paid them, and actually it was like the second time because I bought into a partnership in 2009. I'll go into that later. And pretty much the whole time from then until now, the last few years, we were putting money out every show. I mean, we couldn't draw much. And every show was pretty much, I had to budget it into the rest of my budget. You know, so much had to go in to pay for the show every month.
Mm-hmm.
And the last few years, we started doing pretty good. Somehow we got the crowd and everything was good, you know. But let me see. Anyway, I saw that he told me he sent me an email. I looked at the emails. It was just something about somebody with tickets. I didn't think anything of it. And when we went to the show to do the anniversary show, I was kind of conflicted. Well, when I first bought the company, like over 2 years ago, I wanted to kind of start over. Yeah, acknowledge the 40-some years, whatever. And then started, hey, it's a new beginning. It's a new era, 3WA. Maybe we're starting now. That's pretty much what I wanted to do. But he asked me to keep it going and all that stuff, so I did, And then I guess he never really made it known that he didn't own the company anymore. So he was making deals and making decisions, which were okay, but his role was diminishing as we went on. We knew at some point we would have to do it all ourselves, so we used him less and less, but he was still welcome. He was still part of it. Yes, I could let him keep the name as president and stuff like that. Whenever he was there, he was the front man. He did all that stuff.
Sure.
And I mean, like I said, I didn't think anything of it. And then I see your podcast where he's basically trashing me and the nameless person that's close to me, which, he makes it sound like we don't know what we're doing. When basically I've been running his shows as far as running the locker room, putting matches together since 2002. Right. So I don't understand what part of that is that I don't know what I'm doing or that I can't do a show or whatever you said. But the nameless person handles a lot of stuff and she's pretty good at it. I mean, as far as even booking talent, her having no experience was able to book 2 stars for a show the first few months we were in it. So
that was Carlito and Chris Masters, right?
Yeah, that whole thing was hers. The whole show from top to bottom, she booked the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody having no experience or not knowing what they're doing, I think she did pretty well. And
we've certainly been impressed with her professionalism and everything else. I've never had any kind of a problem or anything. She's super approachable. She's always, good. And I mean, we've seen some stuff where things don't always go well, and she gets stressed and she gets frazzled, but she handles it. So got to agree with you
Right.
there. Not just kissing the boss's butt. I mean, I really
and
am
she's also learning too. Like
as somebody
Yeah,
who's been a
she's
manager.
learning as she goes. Sure.
right. I mean, there's going to be a learning curve there for like a
Mhm.
year or so. I mean, before she, completely knows all the facets of the business and everything.
Well, I feel confident in most of the locker. You can ask anybody in the locker room. I mean, I feel confident that if I happen not to be there, which can happen from time to time, as Dino himself said, I'm busy. I work 70 hours a week. I'm away from home all week, and I have all the confidence in the world that she can do a hell of a good job, and she has. Just recently, I think the show before the anniversary show, she was there on her own,
Yeah, I think
and she
Yeah.
so.
handled things fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So where he comes off totally trashing me and her and all that stuff, I just don't get it.
I don't,
mean,
if I may, I don't think he was completely trashing you, but he was kind of making more comments towards her than you. Like
But I
you,
can,
he kept repeating, "I don't have a problem with Paul. I don't have a problem with Paul." He must have said that like half a dozen times.
but
Well,
having
well,
watched it, I see Paul's point about like if you're then going to turn around and say something about someone that's that close to him,
Oh,
how
well,
do
right.
how do you not understand that that's going to be like, I don't care if you're trying to say that I'm a nice guy and this, that, and the other
Right.
thing. You're hitting somebody that close to me. We have a
Yeah.
problem now.
well, I mean, I kind of know when the problem started between him and her, because when he was still playing owner, um, the one issue that arose a couple of times, when we took over, we kind of wanted to put a system in as far as seating,
Mm-hmm.
and reserve seats. We'd be happy to reserve them, but we also had it where you can pay ahead of time online or other ways, and those people got priority. I mean, somebody gets online and buys a ticket and wants a front row seat. I mean, like in any other kind of business, you pay, first come, first serve, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
And some people, a couple of times we had some pretty nice crowds and stuff like that. Seats went. I mean, that's just what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these people that didn't get their seat went crying to Dino, and then they're coming back to us saying, "Well, Dino said." And after a while, she got fed up and said, "Well, Dino doesn't have anything to say. We own the company."
Right.
Yeah.
And that got back to him, and his head exploded. Like, well, I mean, you sell something. You sell somebody a car. You gonna expect to drive it?
Right.
I mean, like I said, boy, I gave him every courtesy there was, all the respect there was. Never got out of line with him. He came in, he walked in like he was the owner. And even on a lot of the bigger crowds that we had, I even cut him in on the door, which I really didn't have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I really don't know where any of that stuff's coming from. Nobody ever said. I know the part where he was saying about, we were saying Dino screwed us. That wasn't exactly it. He's got a stooge among us, and I know who it is, which is great, because now if I want him to get a message, I know who to tell it to.
Huh.
But the conversation had to do with a ticket or something, that the stuff he used to do with tickets or something didn't go right or something. And what was said was, boy, I hope we don't get screwed because of the discrepancy in tickets.
Right.
Nobody ever actually came out and said Dino screwed anybody.
It did seem odd to me when he brought that up, that somebody said that, because I'm like, not that I know you or the person, super well. I mean, obviously I talk to you guys at the show. If you need to relay me instructions, you do. But I mean, Al certainly talks to you, and I would say knows you a little better than I do. But even then, it kind of came to me as one of those like, boy, this sounds like what happens when somebody listens to a conversation and then relays it to somebody else, that old game of telephone, where it never goes back exactly the way it was said. And the problem is that such a negative spin was put on it that the person hearing it secondhand gets the complete wrong impression and unfortunately didn't decide to reach out to you and go, hey, I heard this thing. How true is it?
Well, I mean, one of his big rants, I kind of put some stuff down because I didn't listen to the podcast when it came out, but I had a couple of people get in touch with me. Yo, man, you ought to listen to this thing. So I did, and one of his big rants was that I wasn't man enough to make a phone call. And, make a phone call about what? The original thing was when I bought him out was he could stay as long as he wanted. He could play whatever role he wanted. Mm-hmm. Whenever he was ready to go, give me a little bit of notice. And of course we would have set something up for him, do the big, send off, goodbye, whatever.
Right.
But 2 years in and more, and he never said, if it was you and I kept saying to you every other day, when you leaving, right? Wouldn't you think I'm trying to push you out the door? So
it would certainly feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't do that. The original, when we made the transaction, the original thing was, yeah, you can stay as long as you want, play whatever role you want. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the ring, do whatever, do the opening all the time, whatever. But I told him, let me know, give me a little bit of time, and we'll make sure we set something up nice for you. And he never did that. But I think he got a little butthurt from the anniversary show because he had no involvement, didn't get any recognition, I guess. And all of a sudden, he decides he's retiring, he's this, he's that. And then instead of letting me know what's going on, he throws up the podcast. The email he says he sent me, which would have been a month after he put their original post up, I never got, or maybe I didn't find. The only email address I can think of that he has is an old AOL account that I barely look at, and that's pretty much loaded with spam. So if I went in there looking for something, I wouldn't be able to find it probably.
You'd have an avalanche of spam on top of it, because I know I had to do that with some of my email accounts, is just create something where unless you're on my contact list, you go into a spam folder, because it's ridiculous how much spam you get.
Yeah, like I said,
just in a day.
An email that I won't look at for months, if not maybe a year or more. I went back looking for this email, and the only ones I saw I was able to dig up were a couple that were about a ticket or somebody getting a ticket. That was it.
My thinking on this is that if he, and I want you to answer this for me, if he had just called you maybe a week or two before the anniversary show and said, hey, Paul, do you mind if I come and say goodbye to the fans? You would have let him, right?
We wouldn't even be having this conversation.
There it is.
That's been my feeling about this whole thing, and it makes me so sad, because obviously Al and I owe both of you a lot, because both of you gave us an opportunity when you absolutely didn't have to. We're two guys that had no prior experience in the business. We can't even come up to you and say oh, we went to college for broadcasting or something like that. We're basically two guys that you had a show and we said, we think we won't suck, if you want to give us a try. And you guys did. So that makes me, on a personal level, so sad to see that this is where it is, over essentially someone just not picking up the phone and calling the other person and going, hey, I want to talk, and working it out.
Yeah, like I said, it all could have been worked out. As far as you guys, I think you guys are great. You bring a lot for us, and I'm glad we gave you the chance. But even getting, as far as getting a chance goes, we're an indie company. There's a lot of wrestlers that get a chance. There's a lot of people who want to be managers. Who are we to turn somebody away? It ain't like we're Vince McMahon or somebody. We're just another indie. We're just another indie fed. A guy comes in, looks halfway decent, has some training and stuff. Yeah, put him in there, get a match. Same thing with you guys. You came in, you looked like you knew what you were doing. So why not? And it worked out great. Appreciate having you guys.
We were such good bullshitters, Al, looking like we knew what we were doing.
Well, you're good.
The important part is, though, Professor, is that the feedback we got from the wrestlers.
Yeah.
And because it's almost immediate. The following week or maybe a couple weeks later, they come up to us and they're like, oh my God, I heard you call our match or whatever. And that means the world to me. It's one thing for the fans to like what we're doing, but the wrestlers, the respect of the boys in the back, that to me is worth everything that we do.
Yeah, that's what motivates me to get better every time.
Well, that's what, with having you guys, I mean, these guys don't get a lot of exposure. So to have any chance at any exposure whatsoever, if one person looks at your podcast or 1,000 people look at your podcast, it's
Right.
a little more than they would have had without you.
Exactly.
So I feel you guys are a great asset. I mean, with you guys, I got no problem whatsoever.
Appreciate it.
I mean, call it as you see it, and whatever happens, happens. But and I mean, it was up to a point in the podcast. Yes, I cut it off. I didn't listen to the whole thing, the whole rant.
Mm-hmm.
But towards the end, I was informed about something that was said where I don't think it's, what do they call that? Irreconcilable differences or something.
Right.
Yeah.
When he started talking about bringing somebody else in to give him a tribute.
Right.
I mean, one of the worst things anybody can do in this stuff is get somebody else to run in your spot.
Right.
Because most of the time they never leave. And it turns into a giant shit fight, a lot of problems, and both sides lose.
Yeah.
Of all people, him to threaten to do that. There was
times during that interview where, like, I, was just letting him go and letting him vent. So I thought once he vented, he'd be okay. And then there were some uncomfortable times during that interview where, I didn't say a word. I didn't comment on anything he was saying. I just listened and let him speak his piece. And then again, you text me maybe an hour or two afterwards and said, do I get a chance to respond? Absolutely you do, because that's fair. If anything, we're here is fair.
Right. Well, that's the way I saw it when I heard you guys. Some stuff you agreed with him with. You gave him, you gave him the courtesy and let him say what he wanted, and you can't ask for more than that.
Chris wants to know, and in a roundabout way, he's asking you who you thought could be the guy to be the face of. So, what guy do you remember when you started, like when you took over? He's asking if was there anybody in particular, or maybe a few in particular, that you could see be the face of the company. The problem with that question is that when you ask that question, if you say one person,
right,
you're gonna piss off like 10 other people in this business.
I was thinking, if it was more of a gradual switch, which it pretty much was, I don't have the personality and charm to be the opener, to do the face of the company. So I was thinking maybe if I could get somebody who could be like, I don't know, a commissioner or president now or whatever, find somebody who can actually get in there, get the crowd to wake up and get started, I would do it. I'm kind of still looking. So
it should be a democracy there, Professor. You got my vote. But I'm just saying, it should be. But
I don't know. That might be a conflict of interest. Although we certainly know there are some folks that are not my biggest fans already, and certainly think it's okay to get me physically involved.
It might be bad.
I will.
Yeah. Anybody but the prime minister, because I think he'd be a little bit conflicted as well.
The prime minister, man, he opens the show. Other than people waiting to see him get his ass kicked, people be running out the door.
He's something. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for him.
I do too. I know some of the younger guys are sometimes critical of his act, but I always look around at it and I always go, listen, who drew more money, Hulk Hogan or Chris Benoit?
Right.
Hulk Hogan. And if you get to a point where you can figure out a shtick where half of your act is just talking to people or stalling or pissing them off, and you're still over and you're still getting booked, that's the real magic of the business, not the 7,000 cool moves you can do or how much you can emulate what you see on TV. It's getting that audience to want to plunk down money either because they love you and they want to see you win and overcome, or they hate you and they can't wait to see somebody beat the piss out of you.
Well, that's like a lot of times with the matches. I'm in the back. I don't see a lot of the matches. But, when I'm outside and he walks in the ring and I can hear the people freaking out, booing him and everything. I mean, to me, that's everything. I mean,
right. Absolutely.
And
contrary wise, like the reaction, let's say you got the dude right now. He's kind of very popular.
Right.
when the reaction he gets is equally as good, you know.
Well, I try to. I mean, the guys that do get, there's a couple of guys that blow the roof off.
Mm-hmm.
So I give them the push, I give them the shots, I give them do put things in their direction. The anniversary show, I felt Roadblock. He's been around for a while, and he's always doing whatever he's asked,
Yep.
and he kind of worked himself into a spot where he deserved what he got.
That was a great moment.
Yeah, that was
that was an
amazing.
amazing moment. The locker room cleared out. The fans loved it. I mean, it was a great moment for not just Roadblock, but for 3WA, I think.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, he's a good guy. It's like, I wanted to do something for him, and I figured that was the moment, that was the time to do it.
It was awesome.
As far as
David says Wolfman for commissioner.
That's not a half
Wolfman for
bad
commissioner.
idea.
I have to see how eloquent he is in the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wolfman, wow.
Wolf certainly has no problem calling it down the middle, right, Al?
Talk about laying down the law right there.
Yeah.
Hey, Wolfman is a great guy, man. I've known him
He is.
forever. He's one of the he's one of the people that can be with us forever, as long as he wants or he needs to, whatever. I mean, Wolfman, he's pretty much a legend in some ways.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
One of those guys that really took us aside, and anytime we have a question or anything, he's always right there to help us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning, man. Like, how did you get into the wrestling business in the first place?
Well, I mean, like, God, it's almost like a million years ago. I ran into Larry Sharp and his father at a hospital I worked at.
Okay.
Back in 1987, something like that. They told me about a wrestling school and stuff that they had. So after a while, I figured I'd give it a shot. So I went and trained. They getting some pretty good matches and stuff. It's Green. I mean, with his connections and stuff, I was getting booked in all over the place. Doing all kinds of stuff. We were even getting set when Vince used to use jobbers. They used to send us up there. I mean, I don't know. It was always too big to get in a match, but it's there. After a couple of years doing that, I had a couple of injuries and kind of saw that maybe at the time it wasn't for me, so I quit for 8 years. And back in 99 and 98, 99, I ran into a couple of guys that were trained with me, and they had pretty big roles to play with ECW and a couple of other people. And they talked me into coming back, giving it a shot. And I did as a goof. I didn't think I was going to do anything. I got booked around everywhere, did some stuff. And then in November of 99, I ran into Dino and the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance. Now, I don't know how much of this I really should say, but I'm going to put it out there. What the hell? I mean, whatever he did in the 80s and early 90s and all these legendary 40,000 people arenas and all that stuff, yeah, it sounds possible. I mean, it probably was done. When I ran into, the way I found the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance, a friend of mine took me that was booked there. I think it was November or December of 99. And it was at a firehouse in Tylersport. There were maybe 8 or 9 workers in the back and 12 people in the audience. So the great Worldwide Wrestling Alliance was shut down for a while, and it was just starting back up. And, I started working for them. I mean, I was a bit older at the time. I didn't have stars in my eyes. I was going to really go anywhere big. And I wasn't going to travel halfway across the country to do an indie show anywhere. And this was all right. It was convenience. We wrestled once a month. I got my fun in. I mean, it was kind of filling in. I played semi-pro football for quite a few years. And, I was banged up and stuff. So, yeah, wrestling might be fun for a while. So I started working with Dino. We had some bigger shows, some smaller shows. But all that glamour and stuff, I never saw any of it. I mean, I was there from 99 till the present. Yeah, we had some bigger shows. We had some good stuff here and there. We had some stars working with us. But other than that, it was just basically indie shows,
What were some of your, highlight moments in your mind, like some of the matches that you'll never forget that you had, or something like that?
I've wrestled the Barbarian back in the early days. I mean, in 2001, 2002, I think, for us, and he actually put me over. I wrestled Jimmy Snuka a few times,
Cool.
Zbyszko. I mean, there was and even before that, like when I first got done training, with Larry Sharp, I ended up in some kind of like a rumble, and it was with SD Jones and a bunch of old WWF guys.
Special Delivery Jones.
There's a name from the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun ride. I mean, if you take it in the right context, you're gonna have a lot of fun in the, in the indies and stuff. You try to make it bigger than it is, But I mean, along the way, it's when I bought in, we called ourselves the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance. Our entire world consisted of a couple of flea markets and a high school here and there.
Right.
So we had a world champion, a heavyweight champion, intercontinental champion, United States champion. And I'm starting to think, man, that's kind of silly. We don't even leave the county. How are we going to call ourselves a world company?
Right.
So when it came time for me to buy it, I wanted to transition into something else. Still keep the spirit of the WWW, whatever. But it's called 3WA. We're not announcing that we're traveling the world when, we're not crossing any continents. I mean, we don't even cross a creek. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
It's kind of silly to make it big, try to make it appear bigger than it is.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, that's why I try not to slip and call whoever is the 3WA heavyweight champion a world champion, because I have kind of the same thought you do, is like, if we're trying to sell some authenticity to the fans, if we're in the same building month in and month out, or if we go somewhere else, we're still in theory in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, or we're still at least within the state lines of Pennsylvania, how do we really say world champion and not have people laugh at us? But if we say,
right,
well, he's the heavyweight champion of the company, people will go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, that's why the titles we have now are the titles that they are. We have the heavyweight, the extreme champion, which has nothing to do with hardcore. It's just a 2 out of 3 false champion or a 3-way all the time. And the new title that pretty much took over whatever the hardcore, United States hardcore or whatever that was. I mean, the Carnage title, giving, a little tribute to you guys, kind of like you have a podcast, make it like almost like a TV title kind of thing.
Awesome.
That was the whole idea of that.
Any hand in that at all.
Yeah, very honored.
But thanks. I mean, the titles that we have now make sense,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we had some other silly stuff going on. Like, Bruno was, an amazing legend. People that never heard anything about wrestling knew who Bruno was.
Sure.
But the reality, I think, you pay a guy X amount of money, pay his hotel and travel and feed him and drive him around. Yeah, he'll be your buddy. I mean, it's common. You're not going to call him and say, hey, you want to hang out? No, he's coming for a business transaction and going home.
Right.
You could be friendly with the guy, but I mean, we had no, he was billed as our commissioner at one time. And I'm thinking, and before I had anything to say about it, they made Scott Steiner the world champion. I mean, you give a name a belt. When is he going to come back to defend it? It's kind of, that's all the stuff I wanted to cut out.
Right.
Which, brings me to a point, one of the reasons like I said, I wanted to get away from the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance thing. And he had a legacy. I mean, like I said, it might have been 30, 40 years ago. But I kind of wanted to put our own stamp on it, see what we've done. It's like it's a what have you done lately for me world, that's where I wanted to go with it. That's pretty much.
Professor and I have been with you for now almost 4 years. And in those 4 years, we've seen an influx of young talent come through. We've seen the bad fellas come through. We've seen the dude come through, Damon Dante. These are guys that have all been, just getting into the business over the past 3 or 4 years. are coming through and making a name for themselves in 3WA. And then
And
the emergence of
there
JT
too, a lot
Cage,
of-
where JT Cage is not as young as those guys, but JT Cage got a late start, and who JT Cage was 5 years ago and who he is now are two different guys.
Oh, JT and Hat Guy are amazing, man. I mean, I've known Hat Guy forever. When I first came back in and started wrestling, the first person I worked for this company, they went out of business a long time ago. But one of my first wrestling matches back in the business, I think it was early '99 or late '98. It was a company in Philly, and I was at the gym and I ran into one of the guys that was wrestling there. So we kind of started talking, and I went to check out the show, and they booked me on the following show. That's how I got back in, basically. And the first guy, as soon as I walked in the ring, the first guy that started tearing me apart was the Hat Guy. he had a group of friends that would come, and they were always sitting front row. And, man, as soon as they found anything they could possibly think of to pick me apart.
They were being loud and obnoxious. I saw some video from way back when. Sent to me by Top Shelf Tyler Sims, where the Hat Guy was in the front row of 3WA shows, and he was as loud and obnoxious as he was when he was sitting in the ECW crowd.
Him and his friends were amazing, man. Those guys I love having him
characters.
There's something else.
And JT working with him, I mean, that's a match made in heaven, basically, because they
I'll tell you.
well.
Oh yeah, Keith
and I will never ever forget that hardcore match with you two where you chucked him off of the top of a.
I think I looked at Al and I knew you guys went up what was going to happen and who was going to take that bump, and he took that bump, and I looked at Al and I think I said, I hope he's alive, because when he gets up, I'm going to kill him for doing that.
Oh my God!
I mean,
well, that whole thing was his idea.
I know it was.
That was, and I kind of wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. I thought about it a couple times, and up until the very last minute, we're up there, and I said, "You sure you want to do this?" He said, "Yeah." And if you see the video, I was supposed to spin him around and throw him off.
Right.
I kind of held off a second. I'm like, I gave him a second spin, asking him, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, go." So I threw him, and I couldn't even look at it for a minute, so I saw him land.
And when you threw him, he went down into the ring. He went through a table, but right after that, there was some kind of big figure something that fell off the area where you guys were standing. Where some people thought that Cage had fallen down to the concrete floor versus into the ring.
Oh, they had these. That was styrofoam letters or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I kind of kicked one of them off, and that's what came down. Everybody thought he went straight down, or I followed him down, or something.
Yeah.
So we talked to Cage about that match, right, many times on this show, and it's one of his all-time moments that he is proud of. But the one thing was in that moment when he's laying there dead in the ring, all he could think about was the Hat Guy, because the Hat Guy had tripped over somebody, was getting chased around the ring, and ended up dislocating his shoulder.
That's what we say. That's the insanity of that night, is that Cage takes that and he's like, "I'm fine," and Hat just trips and dislocates his shoulder.
There was somebody with a scooter in the aisle. Those old people scooters. There was somebody with a scooter in the aisle and he tripped over backwards and knocked out his shoulder. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, those guys. All the new kids that are coming in, I mean, you got to rotate them around. A lot of them, they drift off. They find something better, something bigger than they think it is. So we always bring new people, that's why you'll see fresh faces and stuff as much as possible, but we still have our core group that are, they're there to stay.
And what I like is that we're starting to see some of those younger guys that are coming in and are sticking around and are becoming that core. And when they're given those opportunities, are, trying to put it together. I mean, that's one of the great things about, the Bad Fellas, for instance, is they're also branching off and kind of running their own shows and doing their own thing. And, that's awesome to have in the locker room too. More people with that entrepreneurial spirit that are like, hey, you can do more than just take a booking and show up and wrestle. You can run shows and provide opportunities too.
Yeah, those guys are great. I mean, we got a great core group. Just about. I mean, I can't say a bad thing about anybody that we have there. They go out there to bust their ass. I mean, and that's what the fans want to see. I mean, being as a promoter, wanting to have a goodbye show so your fans come and say goodbye. They're not your fans. They're the guys' fans. They're wrestling fans. You happen to be the one that brought the show there. I mean, the thing that got me is a lot of this stuff, I hate to go back to it, but, he's talking about having an ego and this and that. Where's a bigger ego than going around begging for a tribute show? I mean, that's my take on the whole thing.
Paul Bushman says, bring back the gobbledygooker.
The gobbledygooker.
Yeah.
What is Hector Guerrero doing these days? Maybe we could find out what it would take to get him to put the suit on one more time.
Good God. Please no.
That was a Wrestle Crap was one of the worst gimmicks ever, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Years ago, Wrestle Crap.
Yeah, I actually have a book around here somewhere that I bought in the early 2000s because I know stupid amounts of crap about the business. I used to buy like every book that would come out. Now I'm more selective with stuff, but there was something where they just like collected the worst gimmicks ever, and not just the worst gimmicks ever, but also the stuff that was like, this should not have worked, and it worked. Like like the head of that category of like, this had garbage 2 shows, and everybody will go why written all over it, and they're still making Doink action figures.
Right.
There's a Doink there's a Doink somewhere on an independent show tonight. There's someone is still playing Doink.
Absolutely.
I believe there was a time in the early 2000s or late 90s or something, you could rent the what do you call it? The costume. What's his name? Shit, I can't think.
That would have that might have been Ray Apollo by that point. I don't know if Matt Bourne was still right. Maybe it was Matt Bourne because Matt Bourne was still using it too. I know up until shortly before his death, he was still going around places. And I mean, I remember hearing stuff. CM Punk said something once that Carney Dale Gagner did like a Doink Battle Royal on one of his shows where everybody dressed up as Doink. And that was the Battle Royal, is all these Doinks eliminating each other.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff got pretty silly, but people bought it. They went to watch it, so what? I mean,
and you, Paul, right to your face, and you can repeat this to Katie and whoever else wants to hear it, that if you book the gobbledygooker, I'm absent that day. All right?
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Katie can handle it. All
I
right.
was about to say, wait, no Al for a show. Do it. But then we have to get rid of Paul, too. So I don't know.
Hey, you had me. Yeah, listen, when I ring announced a 3WA show, well, actually 2 in a row, you didn't have to worry about me. You had.
Yeah, you did a good job. And it, like I said,
you had a plethora.
And I always say, like, working with other people, not that anybody's bad, not that anybody's terrible, but there are certainly times where I appreciate the chemistry that we have and how easy you make it for me to be able to do what I do.
Appreciate
it. You guys are a pretty good team. You pull it off. You pull it off well, so it's great.
I'm the Jerry Lawler. He's the JR. All right, so Paul, how about give us some like behind the scenes stuff in the aspect of like, what are some of the biggest difficulties you face in putting on a show as a promoter?
Consistency, getting guys that are going to be there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not contracted guys. They're not, they have other things to do.
Right.
And a lot of them, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of them, something else pops up. They think nothing of not showing up.
Right.
I kind of had that, and I had a little bit of that at the benefit show that we did. A lot of women that were booked overtime for some reason. The last minute they bail. But one of the biggest things is consistency, making sure everybody shows up.
Yeah. because it's hard to run a story. It's not like WWE where it's like, oh, I can put, Becky Lynch against Charlotte, and I know I want to be here by say June 21st, and it's May 1st, but I know as long as nobody gets hurt, they will be here every week, and by June 21st, we'll be where we want to be. Where, like you said, everybody's on a per night, per shot deal. So if you have an idea for 3 months down the line, if it's not somebody that you're consistently working with, like that core group, and I've seen it happen. I won't mention names, but I've seen it happen where we'll have something set up and we'll be like, okay, and then we're going to have the return match next month, and then one or both of the people that's supposed to be there doesn't show up, and now it's like, great, I was trying to do something here, and then I can't do it now.
Now and again, then you got to go do something completely different.
Right.
I mean, that happens. It happens so routinely. I mean, like ever since back when I was just booking the shows, I came up with the phrase, "I'm making chicken salad out of chicken shit," because a lot of times that's the way it works out. But I mean, I wish Dino the best. I have no disrespect for him. I mean, he had a big part to play in this business.
Yeah.
At least for part of it. But I mean, another thing with him that kind of got me is when he said he gave it to me or he let me have it. He didn't let me have anything. I paid for it.
Right.
And he was talking about it. He wishes he imposed on me. Two guys, which are great guys, a big help. I mean, Wyndham and the kid Austin. I mean, they're a big help at a lot of things that I can't do or not available to do, but they're paid for it.
Right.
So I don't know what business world he's in.
I mean, they're already helping you, right? I mean, they're already part of it.
Yeah,
they're a major part of your organization.
That was certainly one of the things that struck me as weird, and maybe a case of, because he's not really involved in it anymore, that he may be having like outdated information there about who does what and who's involved and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he thought, he was going to impose on me who to bring in as partners. That doesn't even, what kind of sense does that make? Because he was saying something like that before he let me have it. He should have put something in there where I had to have Austin and Wyndham helping me. I mean, helping me how?
But the funny part is that you already do have them helping you.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're glad
they are already helping.
They
me.
love
They are huge.
Those two guys, the passion for the business is unparalleled.
Yeah.
They love wrestling.
And they're very good. Austin's very good about logistics. And I mean, if you guys, I'll say to the fans, I don't think he'll mind me saying it. If you guys like the look of the 3WA belts lately, that was awesome. Austin went out and got everything refurbed and redone. Jewels put in where jewels needed to be done, updating designs and things. I mean, he did a fantastic job on all of that stuff. And he's really good at, dotting the T's and crossing the I's and all that good stuff, making sure all the paperwork and the releases and everything are done. Like, he's doing a great job, and he's one of the unsung heroes of 3WA right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I agree with you completely. I mean, he did do a great job with the belts. I mean, we're going to take care of him for that. You know what I mean? But, eventually I think I'm going to, anything that's got worldwide attached to it, I think I'm going to try and phase it out completely. I don't know, maybe do some kind of a throwback thing every so many years. Mm-hmm. And I will set back as far as the anniversary shows go. I'm thinking of having another one, to tell you the truth, within the next, probably maybe one of the shows during the summer. But I mean, 44 years is a bit arbitrary. I can verify for since 99, I guess I can verify 25 of it, minus the 2 years that I owned it. So the Worldwide Wrestling Alliance was its own entity for, as far as I know, 22 years. Now, what happened before 97, I can't speak on. I wasn't there, but there was a little bit of a downtime in between. So for me, taking this big legacy he gave us, which I was part of it for the part that operated anyway, from 99 on, what's he handing over to us? He said, I'm going to run it into the ground. I mean, we had trends with as far as crowds and everything else. They come and go. People change interests. They look at different things, and as long as we keep putting on a consistently decent, product up there, we'll have the fans and we'll be running shows.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see how or where that's going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling is cyclical, but Quakertown's a good place because, the Q Mart, you have everybody in there anyway with all the stores and whatnot. And I would love to see some of the stores get more involved in maybe promoting us or working with us, even if that's a possibility. I know some of them are interested when we show up and you're like, oh, you're with the wrestling show and the last questions and stuff. But I mean, I think that would be great if they would be interested in getting more involved. But even if they don't, having that kind of destination place, and I've been to Quakertown a lot. My godson lives there. My best friend of 20 odd years lives there. So I mean, I'm very familiar with Quakertown based off of that. And it's like there's not a ton to do. So it's nice to have something like 3WA where monthly you can get those people that are like, oh, hey, let's go out to the wrestling matches. And then if we have something great going on, like last year, we had that Wyndham and Theo story going on.
That was good.
Had some really good houses with that because people got into it, really got into all that. And I mean, that is what fluctuates it too. You stumble into a program like that just becomes really hot, or you're in kind of a period where we are now where it's like it seems like we're kind of setting some pieces up and seeing what the next big hot thing is going to be.
Well, I think that 6-man that's coming up in June. That's going to set something off.
Yeah, I think that's going to be absolutely nuts. Falls Count Anywhere. I'm already making sure I know where the exits are because I'm sure they're coming our way.
It's chaos. All right, so Paul, we got about like 10 minutes left. I just want your thoughts on the 44th anniversary show as a whole. That's the last show that we were at, that we all did together, and then your thoughts on what's coming up on the 22nd.
Well, I mean, the anniversary show, I thought was pretty good. It ended up strong. The crowd was a bit light, but the summertime, there was times I thought about not running in the summer. June, July, August. I mean,
it gets hot in there.
It gets hot in there. People got other things to do. They go to the shore or whatever they do. So, but we had a decent crowd. I mean, and the crowd popped. The show was strong. The ending, hopefully will keep them interested coming back.
Absolutely.
As far as the show on the 22nd, I think that 6-man match is going to blow the roof off.
Yeah.
And a few things I got planned coming up behind it. There's some other people coming back that haven't been there in a little bit. So I'll be making announcements of those matches in the next few days. And, we're going to probably build some kind of a story off the 6-man. You got
awesome.
six really strong promoters. Abdul and Lunik. I mean, they're
amazing.
Incredible in there. Yeah,
they're amazing athletes.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
and they're so talented. Otherwise, I had so much fun with them at what was it? Was it? I think it was Norristown. They came in and they did the second half of the show with me, and they were so funny and they were so good as the color guys and whatnot. I hope they stick around because they're definitely guys that are assets to us, and they're nice guys. They're humble. They're polite. They're happy to be there. They're happy to soak up the knowledge. Great assets to the locker room.
I think, those guys and the bad fellas and, JT.
I can watch them all day.
John West, I mean, they can really bring it on, I think it's going to be pretty good.
They're going to blow the roof
rest
off
of the year.
And guys, if you're watching this show and you're in the Quakertown area, Allentown area, or anywhere in that radius, man, you got to come to that show at the Q Mart in Quakertown on Saturday, the 22nd. The doors open at 6 o'clock. The show usually gets started around 7. All your favorites from 3WA will be there. The professor and I will be there having the call of the matches. And, the new heavyweight champion, Roadblock, will be there. He'll be defending it for the first time, most likely.
Well, actually, he's going to be in that 6 personnel. He's going to team up with Abdul and Lou against the Bad Family.
That's
Going to be
correct.
balls count anywhere.
It's
6-man.
going to be chaos.
Right. And if the family loses, they'll have to give up their titles. There'll be a title shot for the other side.
Oh wow, there you
If they
go.
lose,
Wow.
if they lose, Wes will have the shot at JT, and Lunik and Abdul will have the shot against the Bedfellows. That'll be one of the things coming out after that.
Wow.
So there you go.
What
So
a
there you go. That's
huge main
that's
event.
a huge main event. You guys don't want to miss it. Again, Saturday and the fourth Saturday of every month at the Q Mart, you can see 3WA wrestling. And we started going 4 years ago, guys, and we got hooked. We got absolutely hooked to the product, and we enjoy every time we go down there. And everybody, a lot of the regulars that go down there have really welcomed us with open arms, and we appreciate that too.
Yeah. It's a very family friendly product. It's a very family friendly atmosphere, and some of our fans down there are our biggest boosters. Shout out to Mike Butcheroni and all the stuff that Mike does on social media and whatnot to promote the shows and everything. It's a great thing. I know you got your family vacations in the summer and all that good stuff, but plan them around the fourth Saturday. Keep that fourth Saturday open. You're going to want to come down here. You can't beat it for the price, for everything you get. Great night of wrestling, something you can bring your kids to and not feel ashamed or worry about the content or anything like that. We keep it nice and clean. Even if it gets a little out of hand, it's never out of hand in a way that, like I say, anybody's in danger or would feel like, no, I shouldn't have brought the kid to that.
No, we throw a little excitement in there, but
Yeah,
I make sure
absolutely.
it kind of keeps. We're not a blood and guts kind of fed. We never will.
No.
That's why I did away with the hardcore title, because you really, if you're going to do a hardcore match, you got to do a hardcore match, and we're not
Right.
doing that. I'm not going to send people running out of the room because somebody bled all over the place. And besides, you got issues with the commission on that. If they think somebody gigged, then it ends up costing you a lot of money. So
yeah.
All right, sir. Well, we're just about out of time, but don't go anywhere when we go off the air. So we can talk to you after the show's off the air. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Talk.
Do you have any final? Yeah, I was gonna say. Do you have any final words for us and everybody else?
It was great talking to you guys for the first time. I mean, it's too bad that it was under some negative circumstances.
Yeah.
But I hope I cleared the air a little bit. Like I said, I don't want to turn this into some kind of a schoolgirl fight, but
Right.
I had to say my piece. He had a lot to say, and I think I put some facts out there, and I hope it doesn't have a negative effect on us. Some people have their loyalties. I mean, I would hate to think that our fan base is based on some retired promoter, and I would hate to think people would leave because he's not there anymore, because the guys that are on the shows don't deserve that.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and I hope it doesn't end like that. But we're going to keep going, and if we have to rebuild, we'll rebuild. Whatever we need to do, we'll do. But,
yeah, and I mean, I do see Dino is promoting the show, and I mean that is something he did say last week. Whatever the issue is, whatever the disagreements between you guys are, he still wants 3WA to be successful. We also want 3WA to be successful because, I think at the end of the day, yeah, it's a business, but it's also an idea. It's also a legacy. It's also something that, hopefully is bigger than us, and hopefully will keep going, long after any of us have finally decided it's a career for ourselves and we're no longer involved. Hopefully it will still be there, because if nothing else, it's given a lot of people a lot of opportunities, and it's, launched some careers, or it's been a good stopping place for people to learn and improve their careers. There's so many people. You look at the title histories on the website. I know it hasn't been updated in a while, but really look back at some of the people that are on TV right now that passed through, that held a title there.
Right. I mean, everybody starts somewhere, and indies are a place where you start. They get they get some experience, they get their break, and they move on. And I'm
Oh,
happy for them, you know.
Paul, speaking of title histories, we got one last comment here from your 3WA heavyweight champion, the Roadblock Chad McCoy, who says, "Hey, Paul, you don't need no help. You and Katie are doing a hell of a job."
Well, Tom, thank you. It was nice to hear. I mean,
There he is. Well, he can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, he's watching you live.
Gee, I hope I didn't say anything I didn't mean to.
I like to think Chad learned how to use a computer just for us.
I don't think.
Yes,
so.
he did. Absolutely.
I think somebody's holding up an iPhone or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find.
Chad, thank you very much for that comment, brother. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Professor, you got any parting gifts for Mr. Demetrius Arion?
I mean, thank you for coming, you know, thank you for hanging out with us for an hour, and, you know, hopefully you feel like we gave you your time to say what you felt you needed to say. And as always, thank you for all the opportunities and continuing to let us come down there and do what we do every month. You know, some kids dream of being a pro wrestler. I was the weird kid that was like, I can't physically do that, but I bet you I could talk about that if somebody gave me a microphone and I could do what Jim Ross does. So
Sure
it was a dream of mine, and you're letting me live that dream, and I get to bring my boy with me every month, and he has a blast. So thank you for that. Thank you for everything you do.
Hey, thank you guys for being there. I'm glad to have you, you know. And I guess I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we will be there in Quakertown on Saturday, June the 22nd. That's the next big show at the Q Mart. So again, guys, doors open at 6 o'clock. Tickets are just $20. You can enjoy a good night of family fun where that only the 3WA can provide. For the Professor and the one and only Demetrius Arion, I'm Big Al. This was Around the Turnbuckle. We'll see you guys next week.
You think you know me?
Oh, yeah! If you smile!
Calculations are correct when this baby